Okay, let's talk about biceps. In a short video before, you saw one of my favorite biceps exercises, the preacher curl. Today I'm going to talk about the anatomy of the biceps, and I want you to understand why that's important. If you read medical text, you'll see comments that I actually don't agree with, to be honest, that say things like the biceps function really is to serve primarily the purpose of supination. What supination is when you look at your hands, if your palms are down, turning your palms up is what we call supination. So if the job of the biceps is to turn our palms up, and that's the primary purpose of the biceps, then every exercise we did to build the biceps should be focused on supination. So we should be doing a bunch of external rotation movements of our wrist in order to maximize growth of the biceps. Actually, I think the primary purpose of the biceps over years of being an athlete and training and reading muscle magazines is actually the purpose of flexion, not primarily supination. I believe it to be a strong flexor and a weak supinator versus a strong supinator and a weak flexor. We also have a muscle in our forearm actually called the supinator that helps us supinate our arm. And that actually takes the forearm bones that are two side by side connected by a membrane and rotates them in different directions, both internally and externally. So this is called pronation when our hand turns down, and this is called supination. The bicep actually is made up of two heads. That's why it's called the bicep. One of those heads, the long head, actually inserts all the way into the shoulder joint and inserts on the top of our shoulder joint capsule called the labrum. And that little ligament complex can commonly get torn in athlete injuries. We'll see athletic injuries where that labral complex is torn, and then sometimes the bicep connected to it will tear as well. The labrum is basically a capsule of tissue that surrounds the small bone of the arm. The arm is actually stabilized by muscles, the rotator cuff muscles, which you've probably heard about before, because we have a giant ball and a tiny little golf tee that sits together, and that's why we have so much motion for our shoulder. So the bicep does have a dynamic component of support for shoulder stability, but it's definitely not the primary stabilizer of the shoulder. But because it inserts on that area of our shoulder bone, I believe it does have some functional component in stabilizing our shoulder. The primary purpose, again, being flexion of the arm. If you look at the second head, the short head actually inserts on the coracoid. The coracoid is actually a bone that projects off of our shoulder bone in the front, and it sticks out about right here. If it's on me, my coracoid is about here. The supraglenoid tubercle is more on the inside of my shoulder, inside of this complex of muscle and the bone that creates the roof over the shoulder. So the bicep, basically, our exercises, anytime we're working on our biceps, we want to hold our shoulders in a locked position, and we want to add supination. That's why if you look at a lot of bodybuilders, when they do a curl, they don't just do a standard curl. A lot of bodybuilders also start with their hand in a neutral position and then supinate at the top. If you're really trying to focus on the bicep because it supinates, you want to really turn your pinky out at the very top of that movement. So as you come up, you're supinating and really getting that supination movement at the very end. So biceps, this is just a standard curl, alternating dumbbell curls, and again, we're supinating. We're turning our palm up to optimize the full function of the bicep.